Should you buy the Fuji X-Half in 2026? Well, let me save you about 10 to 15 minutes worth of reading reviews online and watching YouTube videos, including this one. The short answer is probably not. The long answer is, well, it depends on a couple of factors, and that is why we have today's video. If you're a repeat viewer to the channel, hey, welcome back. I appreciate you making another questionable life decision by stopping by today. And hey, if the algorithm brought you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Drew, and on this channel, I do organized rambles about photography-related topics and gear. Okay, let's roll the receipts from the camera, and then we'll get into the pros, the cons, and who I'd recommend this camera for. So I rented this camera for a couple of weeks over the summer, and I used it for a friend's wedding, a trip to Florida with my wife where we did Disney and Universal, and then of course as a bit of a slice of life camera when I was out walking my dogs, playing with them in the yards, and etc. You probably saw quite a couple of photos of Quill in the receipts section there as well. And something that I really liked about the camera was its size, and that's going to get us into our list of pros, with the first one being its size. This camera is compact, it is small, it was super easy to take with me everywhere and fit it into, you know, my pockets. My pants pockets, not an issue. Shorts pockets, board shorts, etc., cargo shorts, definitely not an issue. Shirt pockets, yeah, it fit in there. My like dress coat pocket, great. Slings, fanny packs, backpacks, carry-on luggage, it fit anywhere and everywhere I needed it to. It did not fit in the small like pocket within the pocket area of some pants, if you know what I'm talking about. I don't know what it's called, but right, it will fit in almost every single pocket that is out there. Okay, anyway, actually, if you know what that pocket is called, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm too lazy to look it up right now. Right, but all jokes aside, it is small, it is compact. I know it's not, you know, the full frame, I know it's not APS-C, but for a small, compact travel camera, that size is definitely a win. Pro number 2 is it was fun to use. That tagline they had, what was it? You know, half the size, double the fun, is cheesy, it is corny. I still think it is, but after using the camera, I do get it. Everybody loves the Fuji film simulations, and this camera has them. The film effects and filters were really fun to use. The halation, the light leak, the double exposure, all of those, you know, were fun to try out and experiment with. But probably the most fun thing about this camera was the digital film roll. That's probably what my wife liked about this camera the most as well. It was great, you know, when we got back from the wedding to develop, you know, those film rolls, or every night or every other night when we got back to the hotel room while we were down there in Florida. It was great to develop it, go through and look at the photos and be like, oh yeah, I remember that, or that was really fun. And yeah, it was a really nice experience. Those film rolls were great. Pro number 3, right? This camera is different. The film lever, while poorly executed, was a nice touch. It's different. The diptych was fun. It was, you know, something that made me be a bit more intentional about my photography, right? You know, hey, I want to get a nice establishing shot and then do the nice little close-up or detail, or vice versa, or kind of make little panoramas. That was a really nice feature. It seems today, like with each new camera, you know, it's always pushing megapixels, or it's pushing autofocus, or, you know, something that 99% of the population is probably not going to use. And I feel like just Fuji being like, hey, we're gonna innovate something that's based off of fun. Yeah, it was nice. Not executed as well as I would have liked, but you know, that thought, that concept was nice. It was something I appreciated. Pro number 4 was the Fuji X-Half app. I am no lover of Fuji apps. I've had some really bad experience with them before in the past. But I will say, while I used this app for the couple of weeks, and I used it almost every single day while I was renting this camera, I had no failed transfers, no drop connections. The transfer process was speedy and efficient, and it was actually surprising to me. So hey, whoever developed that app on the Fuji team, well done. You're probably never going to, view this video, but I appreciate the work you put into it. And if some of the cost for this camera went into the development of that app, I'm not saying that justifies the cost, but at least you are using your funds well. Okay, the last pro I have here, pro number 5, is this camera does actually shoot in full manual mode. I did not know that initially when I rented the camera, but it was really nice to, do some planning ahead of time, because I will say changing those manual settings is not the fastest process. But a good example is I knew at night, the fireworks would be happening at Disney near Epcot, and it could be cool to go on the Skyliner and take some photos of them. So I, kind of went on there with a pre-planned ISO, aperture, shutter speed, and all that stuff. And it was nice to get, the style of photos that I wanted because I had that control over those manual settings. And yeah, so that's a nice little plus. 5 pros, I think, is good enough. So let's move on to the cons, because there are definitely some concerns I have with this camera. The first one being the price. Now, originally when I rented this camera back in the summer, it was retailing for about $800. And as of yesterday, middle of January, it was currently retailing for about $650. And if I'm being honest, that is still way too much money in my opinion, right? That price is just going to be the biggest hurdle that I'm going to have to recommend this camera to anybody. Con number 2 was the letdown in the tactile experience. I was really excited for the film lover. Okay, I know that probably sounds lame to say, but it is true. I wanted that digital film experience to take me back to me stealing my dad's camera when I was a child. And there was like no resistance, there was no pushback, no haptic feedback, anything like that. And all I wanted was, to have it get a little bit harder to wind and like click or something when I went far enough. I, wound the film far enough. And there were more than, one occasion, actually a lot of occasions, where I didn't, wind the lever far enough when I was in the film roll mode, and I missed taking a lot of pictures in the beginning. It would have been cool if it did like a double exposure, kind of like a film camera would have done, but that was not the case in this. And if they make a version 2, please give me some tactile experience when I use the film lever there. Con number 3, the viewfinder. Okay, I don't care that it's, a piece of plastic. I don't care that it doesn't tell me any of the settings. All I really wished for and wanted were some guidelines in there. Hey, kind of like the Pentax 17, this is when you're shooting far away, here's your guidelines, and when you're shooting, close up, these are your guidelines. The first roller 2 I took with the camera, everything was slightly off center because I did not compensate, right, for the difference between the lens and the viewfinder. So yeah, is that user error? Sure. All right. Over time, I knew how to compensate for it, and it was no longer an issue. But for some folks, that can be a really big frustration. I know it was for me in, the first couple of times I used it. It was a frustration for my wife the entire time she used this camera, because that is not something she was thinking about, and I don't really think she should have, right? If you're using this for fun, you just want to look through the viewfinder and take the picture that you see there. Con number 4, the flash. It is a cheap LED flash. I really wish, it was whatever the proper flash name is. That was like that disposable, camera, bright, right in your face, over the top flash. That would have made some of the photos I took really fun, very nostalgic, very reminiscent of, you know, younger me in the late 90s and 2000s with, you know, the cheap point and shoots or disposable cameras that I used to get when I was a kid. And we'll actually make this con number 4 a double whammy, because if it had a hot shoe mount, I would be able to attach a small flash on there to get that effect, but all they gave us was a code shoe. So version number 2, if they do, you know, a hot shoe, that'd be great. If not, just give us a non-LED flash, please, on there. Con number 5, the autofocus. And yeah, you can insert all of the Fuji autofocus jokes that you want to hear, but the autofocus on this camera was slow, like a couple seconds slow. Eventually, right, it would find the target if it was stationary, but I missed a lot of shots because it took too long for the autofocus to acquire what I was looking for, and by the time it caught it, it was like out of the frame and then it would lose it. So I just got used to the zone focus on it. We'll stop down the aperture a little bit. It was fine to compensate once I got the hang of it, but honestly, the autofocus is pointless. If your target is stationary, it was fine. If it was moving, yeah, probably not. Con number 6, not a big deal for me, but for some folks, it may be a concern. No raw support for the files on there. Yeah, right. I was just downloading the photos to my phone and uploading them directly to my socials, right? The half frame vertical format with the straight out of camera colors. We're fine sending them to group, you know, chats with my friends and family. It was fine for how I viewed the camera to be used, but for some folks, they might want to make some edits. So yeah, I could understand that potentially being an issue. So with all of that aside, right, the pros, the cons, would I recommend that you buy this camera in 2026? It's small, it's compact, it does make a good travel camera, it makes a good, you know, slice of life, documentary style camera. It's got quirks that I actually find enjoyable, but it does have a lot of drawbacks. The big question is, would I spend $650 on this camera? And honestly, I would not. I don't have that type of disposable income to purchase a camera like this. However, it is, you know, middle end of January. Christmas was a couple of weeks ago. I will keep my eyes open for a Facebook Marketplace to see if I can find a good deal on a used one. Maybe somebody got one, used it for a couple of weeks, and were like, hey, this camera is not for me. And maybe I can get one for, you know, about $300, $350. And if I came across one of those on Facebook that was in good shape, it worked well, I would at least consider it. However, maybe you're somebody who's looking to move, you know, beyond your phone photography. You want your first little point and shoot mirrorless camera. I don't think this is the camera you should purchase because you will quickly outgrow it. I think you're better off maybe spending a little bit more money, get a used, you know, DSLR, a used mirrorless, a lens or two, and that is a camera that you will be able to grow with and use for a long time, buy other lenses when you do some upgrades, and then maybe in a couple of years, once you know this is something you want to pursue, you know, it's a passion, then maybe get an even better camera. But I do have a hard time recommending this for most folks. But yeah, that is today's ramble. If you're still here, thank you. Appreciate your stopping by. If you haven't liked the video already, consider